She was forced to marry a man the entire town feared, but no one was prepared for what he would do next. The day the town decided her fate, no one noticed when Evelyn Crow stopped trembling. They only noticed when the silence grew too heavy. The wooden church was full, not of guests but of witnesses, people who came to watch, not to celebrate. The creaking pews echoed each step she took down the narrow aisle, as if the very floor protested against that marriage. Evelyn was 19 years old, but her eyes carried an ancient weariness. It wasn't fear alone. It was the certainty that on that day, something would be taken from her, even if no one could say exactly what. She didn't choose to be there. The town chose for her. Whispers cut through the air like blades. Poor girl. They say he never forgives betrayal. She won't last 6 months. At the altar, Silas Blackwood waited, tall, still, dressed in black as if attending a funeral. Perhaps hers, perhaps his. A landowner, a collector of debts and shattered reputations. A man who never had to raise his voice to be obeyed. Evelyn did not dare look at him, not yet. When the priest cleared his throat, her hands were cold, but steady. Something inside her had changed that morning. She realized it while dressing alone in the borrowed room, listening to the town awaken outside. They expected her to cry, to beg, to break. But Evelyn learned early that breaking in public is a luxury. The weak do not survive. The I do came out low, controlled, final. And it was in that moment, right then, that Silas Blackwood did something unexpected. Something small, almost invisible, but enough to make Evelyn lift her eyes for the first time and feel that this story would not follow the script the town had written, because the true agreement of that marriage had not yet been revealed, and when it was, no one would walk away unscathed. The agreement no one heard, the touch was brief, just enough for Evelyn Crow to feel it. When Silas Blackwood took her hand, there was no possessive grip, no force. It was firm, contained, almost too respectful for a man everyone feared. That alone stirred a faint murmur among those present. The town knew stories of men who entered marriages the way one claims territory. But Silas did not look at Evelyn like a man who had won a dispute. He watched her like someone calculating, something far deeper. The priest continued the ceremony, but Evelyn barely heard him. Her heart beat too slowly for someone in her position. It wasn't calm. It was alert. When it ended, the church finally released its held breath. Pews creaking, hasty footsteps, curious eyes searching her face for any sign of despair. They found none. Outside, the sun punished the dirt road. Silas guided Evelyn to the carriage, ignoring whispers and nervous laughter. Only when the door closed did the world seem to fall away. The silence between them was thick. "You don't have to speak now," he said at last, his voice low and grave. "But you do need to listen." Evelyn kept her gaze fixed on the window. "Listen to what?" she asked without defiance, but without submission. Silas took a deep breath. This marriage was not a punishment. It was a shield. She turned sharply. A shield isn't imposed. Sometimes, if it isn't imposed, it arrives too late. The carriage swayed, but the conversation was dangerously steady. He reached into the inner pocket of his coat and withdrew a thick, sealed envelope. "This is yours," he said, placing it between them. "It's not a gift. It's a right." Evelyn didn't touch the envelope. "A right to what?" Silas held her gaze, stone serious. "To choose what comes next, including whether you stay or leave." Her heart missed a beat. "The town thinks I bought you," he went on. "Let them believe that. Meanwhile, you'll be protected from men who would do far worse than marry you." Something strange rose in Evelyn's chest. Not hope. Something more dangerous. Doubt. Because in Red Hollow, no one did anything without collecting later. And she needed to find out what the price of Silas Blackwood would be. The house where nothing was demanded. Silas Blackwood's property looked nothing like what Evelyn had imagined. There were no guards in sight, no displays of wealth, no attempt to impress. The house was large, solid, built to endure time, not to flaunt power. That unsettled her. Dangerous men usually like to be seen. As soon as the carriage stopped, Silas stepped down first. He did not offer his hand. He simply waited. A small detail, but one Evelyn noticed. She stepped down on her own, feeling the servant's eyes watching from a distance, curious, alert, far too attentive for a normal marriage. Inside the house, the scent of old wood and freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Silas walked a few steps ahead, then stopped. "Your room is at the end of the east corridor," he said. "The door locks from the inside, always." Evelyn frowned. "Locked? Why?" "Because choices only exist when there is an exit," he replied, without turning around. That disarmed her. In the bedroom, everything had been prepared with excessive care. Simple clothes, books, a pitcher of clean water, a small wooden box on the bed. No attempt at possession, no symbol of control. Evelyn closed the door and, for a few seconds, simply breathed. Then she opened the box. Inside were documents, property papers, a name written in firm ink, Evelyn Crow. Land, money, autonomy. She sat on the edge of the bed, her legs giving way beneath her. It was not full freedom, but it was dangerously close. Hours later at dinner, Silas kept his distance. He spoke little, ate slowly, watched more than necessary. "Why me?" she asked, breaking the silence. He set his utensils down. "Because you didn't beg in that church." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one that matters." A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. "And what do you gain from this?" Silas stood, walked to the window, and looked out into the darkness. "Time." "Time for what?" He took a moment to answer. "For the town to reveal itself." That same night, when Evelyn finally fell asleep, she did not notice the horse standing beyond the fence, nor the man watching the house in silence. But Red Hollow had noticed something, and it did not like it when the game changed without warning, because that marriage was not only protecting Evelyn, it was provoking a silent war. When the town begins to collect, Red Hollow didn't attack head-on. It waited, watched, and then tested. The next morning, Evelyn noticed it in details too small to ignore. The mail never arrived. The milkman passed straight by the house. When she walked the edge of the land, she felt the eyes, not one pair, but many, hidden behind fences and distant curtains. It wasn't curiosity, it was measurement. Inside the town, the rumors had already changed tone. They no longer spoke of how long she would last. Now they asked what Silas Blackwood was hiding. By late afternoon, the first message came. A saddleless horse lay dead near the edge of the property. No visible marks. No note, just a silent warning, left by hands that knew exactly what they were doing. Evelyn's stomach turned when she saw it. "They're testing you," Silas said behind her, his voice far too calm for the scene, "and watching how I respond." "And how will you respond?" He stepped closer to the animal, studied it briefly, then walked away. "Not today." That surprised her. "Isn't doing nothing dangerous?" "Doing the wrong thing is more dangerous." That night the town took the next step. During dinner, a gunshot echoed in the distance. Not close enough to wound, not far enough to ignore. Silas didn't move. Only then did Evelyn realize he was counting the seconds. 3, he murmured. "They're nervous." "Who are they?" Silas finally looked at her. "Men who profited from fear, before you arrived." With a tightness in her chest, Evelyn understood she hadn't been chosen at random. She was the visible piece of something much larger, a shift in power. Hours later, someone knocked at the door. Jonah Pierce, an old merchant of the town, stepped inside with a practiced smile and calculating eyes. He congratulated the marriage, commented on the weather, then casually let slip. "The town has been feeling uneasy. Changes tend to come with a price." Silas answered without raising his voice. "Some changes come to settle old debts." Jonah's smile widened. "I just hope your wife is prepared." Evelyn held his gaze. "I am." After Jonah left, Silas spoke softly, almost a warning. "From now on, they won't look at you as a victim anymore." "And how will they see me?" He hesitated. "As a threat." And that same night, as the wind struck the windows, Evelyn realized something frightening. She was no longer waiting to be saved. She was preparing to resist. The man Silas tried to bury. The name surfaced in a conversation Evelyn was never meant to hear. She was walking down the hallway when Jonah Pierce's voice slipped through the half-open office door, low, urgent. "You know they haven't forgotten, Blackwood. Not after what happened in Ash Creek. The silence that followed was heavy. Evelyn stopped. "Ash Creek is buried," Silas finally replied. "Just like the men who tried to use me. Buried doesn't mean forgiven." Evelyn stepped back before she could be noticed. Her heart was pounding. Ash Creek. She had never heard of it, but from the tone alone, she knew it wasn't just a place. That night she confronted Silas. "What happened in Ash Creek?" He took a long moment to answer. The dim lantern light carved hard shadows across his face. "I believed I could negotiate with men who only understand loss," he said at last. "They wanted my land. I offered money. And they took people." The air grew heavy. Women, children. He closed his eyes for a brief second. "When I went for help, the town turned its back." Evelyn felt a knot tighten inside her. "So you went back?" "No." His voice hardened. "I collected." She understood what went unsaid, and she didn't ask how many died. Some answers arrive on their own. "Red Hollow shelters men who profited from that silence," Silas went on. "When I married you, they realized the past had found a new way in." "I'm that way in." "You're the line," he corrected. "They know they can't touch you." Without exposing themselves, Evelyn drew a deep breath. "Then why give me a choice? Why give me a way out?" Silas looked at her with something close to regret. "Because if you stay, you become part of this. And I didn't choose this burden for you." She thought of the envelope, the land. The door locked from the inside. "Maybe," she said, her voice steady, "I don't want to be spared." The next morning the town answered. A fire tore through Silas's oldest warehouse. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was taken. It was a message. And as the flames climbed into the sky, Evelyn understood something terrifyingly clear. The marriage hadn't been the beginning of the conflict. It had been the declaration of war, the choice that could not be undone. The smell of smoke still lingered in the air when Evelyn did something Silas did not expect. She crossed the property without asking permission. She put on a simple coat, tied her hair back, and followed the dirt road leading to Red Hollow, ignoring the discomfort that grew with every step. It wasn't recklessness, it was decision. The town stopped when it saw her. Doors remained half open. Conversations died mid-sentence. Evelyn walked like someone who had nothing left to lose, and that, more than fear, unsettled them. She entered the central store and asked for paper, ink, and an official seal. The owner hesitated. "Mrs. Blackwood doesn't usually come alone." Evelyn held his gaze. "I usually do what is necessary." Within hours, the notice was ready. A simple document, direct. It stated that all old debts tied to Silas's lands would be reviewed. Obscure contracts, silent renegotiations, deals made in the shadows. Everything would come to light. Signed by her. When Silas found out, he didn't raise his voice. He simply closed the office door with far too much care. "You shouldn't have done this," he said. They were already attacking," Evelyn replied. "I just changed the field." "Now they'll aim at you!" She stepped closer, steady. "They already were. The difference is that now they know I see." That night the first direct attack came. A horse was released from the corral, panicked. Fences were cut. A shot struck the outer wall of the house, loud, deliberate, meant to wake everyone. Silas reacted quickly. Armed men were positioned, but Evelyn did not retreat. "They want you to answer with violence," she said, "so they can justify what comes next." Silas stared at her, impressed and irritated. "You learned that far too fast. I learned by watching you." The attack stopped as abruptly as it had begun. In the silence that followed, Evelyn realized something crucial. The town no longer knew what Silas Blackwood's next move would be. And that was exactly what terrified them. Before sleeping, Silas left something on her table, a revolver. "Not to use," he said, "but to remind you that, from now on, you choose how far this goes." Evelyn closed her fingers around the cold metal. She didn't want blood. She wanted truth. But she knew, in Red Hollow, truths always come at a price. The mistake that couldn't be erased. The attack didn't come at night. It came in broad daylight. Evelyn realized something was wrong when the house grew too quiet. No horses nickering, no footsteps from the hands in the yard. Even the wind seemed to pull back. as if it didn't want to witness what was about to happen. She was in the study when she heard the gunshot. Not close, but not far enough. Silas was already on his feet before the echo faded. He grabbed his coat, his gun, not out of impulse, but out of habit, and left without a word. Evelyn followed. At the edge of the property, they found Caleb Morris, one of the former workers, lying on the ground, alive, but hurt badly enough to send a clear message. Blood stained the dry earth, and his eyes shook more with fear than with pain. They said it was just a warning. "For you," Caleb murmured, looking at Evelyn. Silas closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something had changed. Not anger, calculation. "Who?" he asked. Caleb hesitated. Then he spoke the name that changed everything. Harlan Knox, the man who controlled half the town's debts, the same man who had grown rich in Ash Creek while others were burying their dead. Evelyn felt the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. "This wasn't against you," she said to Silas. "It was against what we represent now." Silas nodded slowly. "He thinks he can force my hand." "And can he?" Silas looked at her. "Not anymore." That afternoon, Evelyn did something even more dangerous. She sent for Harlan Knox. Not through intermediaries, not through threats, through a formal invitation. When Silas found out, he stayed silent for a long time. "If he accepts, it won't be to negotiate." "I know," she replied. "It will be to measure who we are." Harlan arrived at dusk, well-dressed, confident, with the smile of a man who believes he still controls the board. "Mrs. Blackwood," he said. "Brave or reckless?" Evelyn didn't stand. "Reckless men shoot at workers. I ask questions." His smile faltered, almost imperceptibly. "You don't understand what you're getting into." "I understand perfectly," she replied. "I'm exactly where the silence ends." Harlan leaned forward. "Then choose your next words carefully." Evelyn held his gaze. "My words aren't the problem. They're the answers you're going to have to give." In that moment, Silas understood. The town had made an irreversible mistake. Because threatening Evelyn Crow would not provoke fear, it would provoke exposure. When silence is broken in the public square, Evelyn did not choose the office. She chose the central square of Red Hollow. The notice was simple, nailed to the church door and the general store. Open hearing, matters of land and debt. Attendance recommended. Nothing more. It was enough to draw everyone in. Men who never appeared in public. Women who knew too much to speak. Merchants who lived off other people's fear. The town gathered not out of curiosity, but instinct. When someone breaks the pattern, everyone wants to see the cost. Silas stood beside Evelyn, silent. He did not lead. He did not interfere. That alone was unsettling. Harlan Knox arrived confident, but his eyes betrayed the tension. "Are you going to turn this into a spectacle?" he muttered. "No," Evelyn replied. "Into a reckoning." She opened the folder of documents. These debts were incurred without legal record. These lands were taken under coercion. These contracts, she raised a paper, were signed by men who now claim they never learned to read. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Lies!" someone spat. Evelyn did not react. "Then explain why the same names appear in Ash Creek, and here the name fell like gunpowder." Absolute silence. "Ash Creek was an accident," Harlan said too quickly. "A fire, chaos. It was a plunder," Evelyn answered, steady. "Enabled by debts designed to choke families. You profited from desperation and called it order." She turned to the town. "How many of you lost land? Children? Your voice?" Some heads lowered. Others nodded, slowly. Harlan laughed, strained. "You have no legal power." "I have witnesses," she said. And then Caleb Morris stepped forward, wounded, pale, but standing. Then another, and another. Old stories, open wounds. The town began to move, not like a crowd, but like memory. Silas stepped forward. "I didn't come for revenge," he said. "I came to end a cycle." Harlan stepped back. For the first time, Evelyn closed the folder. Red Hollow will no longer be sustained by fear. In that moment, the town understood. There was no going back, because when the truth is spoken out loud, it never again belongs to those who tried to hide it. The night Red Hollow chose a side. The town did not sleep that night. Lights stayed on longer than usual. Doors locked. Guns cleaned with no immediate need. When the truth comes to the surface, it does not bring peace. It brings choice. And some men do not know how to live without control. The first shot echoed after midnight. This time it was not a warning. The bullet struck the main barn, igniting dry hay. The flames rose fast, hungry, lighting the sky like an ancient signal of war. Evelyn ran outside, her heart too steady for someone in danger. They want chaos, she said beside Silas, to erase what was said today. They won't succeed, he replied, already organizing the men. But Red Hollow was divided. While some helped contain the fire, others watched from a distance, waiting to see who would fall first. Fear was still there. It just no longer ruled alone. In the middle of the confusion, Harlan Knox appeared. Not running, advancing. "You exposed lies!" he shouted at Evelyn. But you didn't change who's in charge." Silas stepped forward, gun in hand. "It's over, Harlan." "Not while I'm breathing." The shot came fast. Confused. A mistake. It wasn't Silas who fired. It was a man from the town itself. One of those who had lost everything in Ash Creek. Harlan dropped to his knees, disbelief on his face, understanding too late what he had unleashed. Power built on fear dies when fear changes sides. The silence that followed was absolute. No one celebrated. No one cried. Evelyn stepped closer, feeling the weight of that moment close like a circle. "This isn't victory," she said. "It's consequence." When the fire was finally under control, Red Hollow was no longer the same. Some alliances had burned along with the barn. Others were born right there, between hands blackened with ash. Silas looked at Evelyn, exhausted. "Tomorrow the town will wake up not knowing who it is?" She nodded. "But it will wake up free from silence." That night, Evelyn understood something she would never forget. Courage does not eliminate danger. It simply decides that danger no longer gives the orders. And there was still one last choice left, the most important of all. The gift that silenced the town. Dawn arrived differently in Red Hollow. There were no gunshots, no urgency. The town woke like someone who had spent the entire night staring at their own conscience, weary, but awake. Evelyn walked alone to the porch. The air still smelled of ashes, but there was something new there, space. For the first time, no one watched her as property, a threat, or a victim. Silas approached in silence. "The town will survive," he said. "But it will never be the same." "Neither will I," she replied. He nodded. Then he placed a small, dark wooden box on the table. "This is the true wedding gift." Evelyn opened it. Inside were final documents, signed, sealed, and a letter. "This marriage ends when you decide. The lands, the assets, and the protection remain, not because you are my wife, but because you chose to stay when you could have left." She looked up, moved. "You never wanted to trap me." "No," Silas answered. "I wanted you to have something this town never gave anyone. Real choice." That morning, Evelyn made her final decision. She summoned Red Hollow once more, not to accuse, not to negotiate, to announce. The reclaimed lands would be redistributed, illegitimate debts annulled. A council would be formed, not by force, but by responsibility, and she would not rule alone. "Power that concentrates rots," she said. "I've seen that up close." No one disagreed. When it was over, Evelyn returned home. Silas was waiting. "Will you stay?" he asked, without demanding an answer. She smiled softly. "I will, but not because I was forced. I will stay because I choose to." Silas extended his hand, not as an owner, as an equal. Red Hollow never whispered her name with contempt again, never dared to judge her in silence, because that 19-year-old young woman, whom everyone expected to break, taught an entire town that dignity is not begged for. It is built, and when it is born, it silences even the most feared men of the West.